Yeah.
Hey, hey, Matt. How are you?
Good. How's it going?
Good, good. I like the retro Braves hat. Very nice.
Thank you. I can't get enough of that the '80s Brave stuff, man. It was really good design.
Very distinctive. Very cool. I always liked the 70s/80s shoulder kind of feather design that they had.
Yeah.
I always thought that was cool.
There goes the Yankee cap on. All right. I love it.
There we go.
If you guys are going to win caps, I have no choice.
The Yankees also had to deal with Angel Hernandez, so I think that was the.
Oh, yeah. He definitely sets a distinct strike zone.
Depending on
And
the
then
inning.
has a short hook.
Yeah. Which were both on display today.
Ah, were they not? All right. Well, I'll tell you what, folks. I think we got a quorum here. So I'm going to go ahead and get us going. I've already started the recording. Welcome everybody to the August SABR North Florida Buck O'Neill Chapter Social. We've got a pretty full agenda in front of us here. First of all, I think what I'd like to do is go ahead and see how everyone else is doing. Check in, see how things are going, and been talking about the Yankees game today. But how are things going overall? How are you feeling about the season so far, such as it has been?
Miami's in first.
Yeah. Of course they are.
Well, my group's got a poll going on, or a monitoring going on, who's going to guess the right date the commissioner cancels the season. Unfortunately.
Yeah, which is a absolutely legitimate concern.
I want to know where Brent and Fred are. I mean, between the Twins and the Marlins, I would suspect that they would be here just, whooping it up.
Yeah, throwing all hours of the night. You'd think so, but not sure where those guys are. They typically are a little bit late to the party, so we'll give them a little more time. And when they come in, they'll get their 10 seconds to crow, and we'll move on.
Yeah, Jeff's not here again. Where's Jeff?
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be able to make it or not, given his work schedule and given how much he's having to do above and beyond working for the Department of Health. I am not certain as to how much he's going to be able to join us month to month. He's also feeling probably a little less than sanguine about the season, not because his Cubs aren't doing well. That's obviously not the case. But the man feels, I think, rather dismayed about the way Major League Baseball has responded to the COVID-19 situation with its protocols, and how, despite the fact that both the Marlins and the Cardinals have had massive outbreaks on their teams, baseball seems to continue without any kind of abatement or consideration for suspension or cancellation of the season. So I don't know. I think he's a little bit put off by all of it, given his background and given what he experiences on a daily basis with COVID and with the data that keeps coming in, the new positive tests, and so forth. So I do also know the man is scheduled because of that job. So hopefully he'll be able to join us. We'll see.
I'm getting a lot of feedback when you talk, Matt. I don't know if is it just my reception here, or?
No, I get feedback too.
Yeah,
I'm getting it too. What you might want to try is the people, when they're not talking, just mute. See if that works or helps.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute everybody, unmute myself, and we'll see what we get here. All right. Interesting. Okay, I'm still hearing a little bit of feedback. Okay, now it's gone. Is everybody able still to hear me, though? Okay,
Yes, I
deal.
can hear you.
Good deal. Okay, gotcha. Cool. All right. So we'll keep it that way for now, and let's see if that helps to cut down on our feedback issue here. All right. However, having talked about kind of the way things are going so far, I want to go ahead and move on to our next topic here. The article that Glenn sent us back on about July 21st, 22nd, somewhere in there, from the New York Times about if you had the chance to do a reboot or a restart or change existing rules within any number of different professional sports, given the circumstances that we now have, what would you do and what would you propose? So in that article, it started with baseball because baseball was on everyone's mind at that time as the season was starting to come to reality, was starting to begin there. They proposed some very interesting ideas, some of which have come to fruition. For example, while not exactly realigning the leagues and conferences with expedited travel in mind, they decided to reorganize the schedule, as we all know, around regional travel, so that you play all the teams in your division X number of times, and then you play teams in the same division in the other league so many times, and kind of an unbalanced schedule in that regard. But there were some other ideas in that article and some other ideas that y'all may have in mind. Does anyone want to start us off with some other possibilities, some other thoughts to consider for changes in baseball? And just open up the floor here.
I think they should combine it, skip the leagues, have 3 divs, East, Central, West, 10 teams in each, and go from there. For the postseason, it's the 3 div winners, and then whomever's scored the most will play the second best amongst the whole MLB. If you're screwing around with everything, why not begin from scratch?
Yeah, that's fair enough. What do y'all think about that?
Chuck, is your suggestion just for this year, or are you suggesting from here on?
Like all things, DH, mound lowering, it's here until the next whatever.
So 10 teams, 3 divisions. So then you got the 3 division winners, and then who would the fourth place, if you will, 4th playoff team be again, Chuck? Just so
Across the whole league, the second best team.
okay.
Win 1 loss record.
1 loss record, not winning percentage like we're facing here in the current season, correct?
Right.
Gotcha. All right. So for example, we could, I guess that would be something like the Yankees, the Cubs, the Dodgers, and then whoever comes next, whoever that might be.
Probably somebody in the Central, because the money's on the coasts, and the Central's going to have an easier schedule.
In a 10-team alignment, yeah, if you take the 2 central divisions, yep. That's quite possible. AL Central being rather weak.
Well, I keep on hearing that they make all the money off of the playoffs. So if you have I don't mind only 4 teams making it, but I don't think the owners would ever go for that.
I'm not sure the players would be thrilled either.
No.
No, I don't think the players would be very thrilled. I think the only way that they got this season to happen was to expand the playoffs and give the players a significant cut. A major factor in making sure that this season ultimately came together. I mean, the commissioner called for it and said, we're going to play 60 games and that's that. But to get enough players to buy in, I think putting that expanded playoff in place and giving the players money really helped with that.
Oh, my understanding was that the expanded playoffs was the league's idea as a way of getting a little more money out of what was essentially a much smaller pie this year.
Yes, it is.
The players went along with it because they were promised their cut of it, but it was
right.
not.
And their cut
the
was
players.
increased. Their cut was increased, I think, relatively speaking. So I think that helped further cement the idea and sell guys on it. Probably, who knows? We won't know necessarily, but I could see where certain teams, maybe certain players were on the fence as to whether they were going to play. And then when they said, hey, look, expanded playoffs, more money, we might have, a shot to get in the playoffs in this year, because otherwise we weren't going to have any shot. I'm thinking of my own Tigers in this case. Maybe some guys were persuaded.
I was thinking of Mike Trout.
Yes, too. And so far he seems to be, even though he's a new dad, he seems to be happy playing. So even though he did kind of intimate that he was considering sitting this year out, especially after his kid was born. So how about some other ideas or some other thoughts besides total realignment and a very simplified playoff structure?
I think that a change that'll be interesting to see how it goes and see if it gathers up any support in this shortened season is the thing about putting the runner on second base in the extra innings. Try to knock out those marathon 15, 16, 17 inning games.
Yeah. I'm curious, and we haven't seen this happen yet, but in one of these double headers that they're going to inevitably, that we're going to see quite a bit more of as they try and squeeze more games into the schedule, makeups and so forth. When they get to the 8th inning, which is extra innings in a double header game, putting that runner on second in an inning that would have been under normal circumstances a regulation inning. Just the idea of that, even though that's extra innings and we all know what the extra inning rule is now, just like Kent explained, I'm kind of fascinated by the thought of just seeing that visually. 8th inning, runner starts on second. And I don't know, I think that's going to take me a little bit of time to get used to in that context. The extra is like a 10th, 11th inning with a runner starting on second. I'm already kind of making my mental, but the idea of having a runner start at second base 8th inning seems awfully bizarre to me right now.
Bizarre, but then you watch it and they don't change their strategy. Every extra inning game I've seen, everybody's still swinging for the fences with a runner on second, nobody out. I mean, it's just annoying where
I think it makes sense if you're the visiting team. I mean, playing for one run just lets the home team know, even if you score that one run, all they have to do is get one run. I think for the home team,
if you watch the teams bat, the visiting team is going up there and swinging for the fences.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I think the visiting team should be swinging for the fences. It's when the home team only has to score one run. That's when it doesn't make any sense to me. That's when it makes sense to just do what you can to score the one run. It gets you a victory. I think for the visiting team, it's dangerous to try and score just one run. I certainly wouldn't think that one run's going to hold up against the Yankees.
Get that one run in. You still got to get the run in because then they start tie game bottom of the ninth, bottom of extra inning. I mean, so it's
right.
It's weird to me that with this rule, you could take a perfect game into the 10th, a scoreless perfect game into the 10th. You could put a Billy Hamilton type on second base. He could steal third. You can squeeze Bunham in to score, and you just lost a perfect game with no anything, right? Like the guys at research places, like, no, that is actually a possibility. That would still be considered a perfect game, and it blows my mind.
I think if I'm Vegas, though, I'm taking that bet that it won't happen. Not this season. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys something about that. This isn't necessarily directly pertain. Well, it does kind of pertain to the article that I sent out there with the strike zone that is in the rule book, enforcing that strike zone. I don't know if it's a fair observation, but it does seem to me that what I've seen so far of the different games I've watched so far this year is that the strike zones that are being called consistently wider.
Oh God, yes.
Than in years past, as if, I don't know what has prompted it necessarily, whether the umpires are not quite in regular season form yet, or whether there was some sort of unspoken decision. I have no idea. But consistently on the inside and on the outside of what should be the vertical sides of the strike zone, there seems to be a consistent expansion of the strike zone, especially down and away, and to a lesser extent down and in. I'm seeing a lot more strikes called there. I'm wondering what folks are thinking about this. Are you observing the same thing? And if you are, is that an attempt in a way to either speed up the game or to add some excitement by forcing hitters to cover more and beyond of the plate to try and put the ball in play more?
I just don't know why they wouldn't go higher. in the strike zone, which is the real strike zone.
Right.
I don't know why they would go wider other than a mistake, So, my sense would be it's more of getting back into the routine of calling it where it really is. But I think the strike zone ought to be more like the actual strike zone. But I don't. Why did they go to a restricted strike zone? What was the reason for that? Just to encourage hitting more than pitching? Why did they do that?
Wasn't it partially the speed of the pitchers? And it's really tough to hit a pitch up high at like 97, 98 miles an hour. Now you got everybody throwing up there. But they kind of moved it down to kind of lessen the impact of that. I mean, we have enough strikeouts in the game as we do, have right now. So I'm not sure I'd want to see them pull the strike zone very up very much. Think we'd see a lot more strikeouts.
Yeah, if they're having to defend, if you will, the upper third of the strike zone.
Well, where was the strike zone in the 1950s? Same place?
No, it was back to what you and I think of as a strike zone.
The letters.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean,
That's when they had the big balloons and they stood right behind the catcher instead of to the side.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
the giant chest protectors.
But I mean, it didn't seem to be a big problem back then to strikeouts. I mean, they're swinging for the fences now, so there would be more strikeouts now for sure. But maybe it would cause them to have to go back to a less home run derby type style of play.
Actually, something you said about wearing the big chest protectors and standing directly behind the catcher reminded me that I had seen a player mention this week that the umpires were setting up over one shoulder or the other. And I think this plays into what you were just talking about that outside strike being called. Because the umpire is setting up over a shoulder instead of straight behind. And they've started calling that outside strike because they just don't have the angle.
That's always been the case, though, since they went to the chest protector inside.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's been more common where they set up over one shoulder or the other of the catcher.
But that outside strike, I was watching a Cleveland-Cincinnati game a couple days ago, and the pitcher was just living on that outside corner and getting strike after strike.
Yeah.
And it made me think of the old days when Glavine would live out there in the playoffs.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Juan Hernandez, yeah.
Yep. Oh, well, yeah, the Eric Gregg strike zone. Yeah.
Yes, exactly that strike zone.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to throw in my own opinion, which is that I really think the electronic strike zone would be a great thing for baseball, assuming they can really perfect it. And for one thing, it would be consistent. You wouldn't have to worry about who was behind home plate in a given game. And the other thing is, I think it's going to speed up the game a lot. There's no arguing about what, you missed that ump, that whole thing's just going to go away. It's just get in there, and if the ball's in the strike zone, take a hack. That's my opinion.
Well, I know that, again, I was reading about the experiment they're doing in the minor leagues with that. And one of the issues they had was that the strike zone was about how tall the player was and was kind of ignoring how low they crouched. And they realized that they had a perverse incentive for players to lie about how tall they were.
Yeah, because they're going off the statistics on the back of the baseball card or the roster or what have you instead of
right.
Yeah,
Their stance.
I think they have to measure guys, really.
Exactly. You have to get the official measurement every year.
Yeah. I think everyone starts looking like everyone looks like Ricky Henderson at the plate. Everyone just gets down.
Which I would be okay with. That was a great stance.
Oh, it's fantastic. I think that was one of the.
But then you got to stick with that stance all season.
But I think it'd be interesting too is what would be the impact on the player, on the batter, because now they get mad, they lose concentration. Some of them. I wonder if it would settle down the batter to know that the automated strike zone is accurate, and if it would make any difference at all.
Right. In other words, who are you going to argue with?
Yeah. I mean, so you're not going to get mad necessarily. I mean, you may be mad at yourself, but if if it's an accurate, like Kent said, if it's really accurate, then it would have a psychological impact on the game too, I would think.
Yeah, and I'm curious about that too. I wonder how that will play out when, and I think it's inevitable that we get the automated strike zone. I really do. I think it's a matter of time. It's like Kent was sort of talking about, it's just perfecting the technology. I don't know next
Also,
year.
how quick the call's made.
Well, exactly, because there was a delay in the Atlantic League, and I think some of you know about this, of upwards of, what was it, 2 seconds before the umpire got the relay call from wherever.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're at bat.
Every pitch you're having to wait for that would get obnoxious in a real quick hurry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the automated strike zone's inevitable. I don't know how else how we're going to avoid that, especially given baseball's desire, to keep fans interested, and to keep the game interesting and relevant. And then, what they're doing to try and effectively take over the minor leagues, where they will get further lab experimentation opportunity for things like an automated strike zone, not just having to work with the Atlantic League, a quasi-independent league, actually be able to implement things at the minor league level with their own players and their own organizations and their own control over matters. So
in some ways that's a positive, because the players will have been brought up through the minors used to that, and it won't be a sudden change at the major league level.
Yes, just like like anything else, the young players who come through the systems used to that sort of thing will adjust easily, and then the old veterans who've been there in their mid to late 30s, and this is the first time they're dealing with an automated strike zone, that's going to be a challenge. That'll be an interesting reaction to see what they do. I think in particular someone like Miguel Cabrera, so how he'll adjust. First, I just want him to start hitting, period. That'd be nice. Secondly,
what does everybody think about, now that we've had it for a while, the replays that we have now that we can replay, the different plays? Do you think it's been beneficial? Do you think the fans and the players and the managers like it, the result of it, having more accuracy or not?
Interesting question. I don't know whether the managers and players appreciate it any more or less than they did when it was first implemented or before it existed. That's a good question. I haven't heard hardly anything on that count. By and large, I like it, and it seems like this year they have even less time, 20 seconds to make up their mind as to whether they're going to appeal a call before it's too late, something like that. So
I think that speeded up the game, not making them do it quickly. But did anybody see the Chicago Cubs triple play the other day?
Heard about it.
The one hopper
with Bryant, the non-triple play.
The one.
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That was not a triple play. Says
One
this
hop.
fan.
That's what I was going to say. We talk about it. Why shouldn't something like that be reviewable?
Right.
Well.
Oh yeah. And if you're going to have replay, expand it to incorporate most every kind of opportunity or situation. Exclusion of judgment calls.
Well, I think the problem with that, and I agree there should be a replay on that, but the runners go in a different motion because they thought it was an out. They thought it was caught too, and then all of a sudden you go to the replay and it's a one hopper. So what do you make the call? Is it a dead ball from that point? And
yeah.
So I think that has to be worked out, but but it was obvious on camera. He didn't catch it.
Yeah, and I think maybe I'm more frustrated by it than I would have been 10 years ago, because now we have an expectation that things are going to be right. So
yeah, it's context and it's relative. It's relative, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I think replay has worked better than I thought it would, with the one caveat of holding the tag on the runner sliding into second, because so many of them from brief moments are off the bag that we would never have noticed before replay.
Well, I think they've gotten away from that, haven't they? I thought there was some rule where it was getting, I had a problem with that too, where it'd be like that. If you look at this one split second on a camera that nobody would ever have caught otherwise.
I don't think they ever actually implemented a rule. I think the runners just realized they need to hold on to that bag in a way that they never really thought about before. I don't think a rule was ever actually implemented.
I thought it was just like a directive to the umpires, which is like sort of, but could be wrong.
I know they talked about it. They definitely talked about it.
Well, also now they used to give the automatic tag to the second baseman if he just put his glove down, didn't even have to tag the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the neighborhood. Yep.
Yeah, and then
If the ball beat the runner, it was an out. Yeah.
yeah, so we don't see that anymore. You know?
No.
No.
But we also see the second baseman holding that glove on the runner in a way that he never did before. Well,
Yeah.
except most of them. Most of
Yeah,
them.
most of them. Yeah, some still forget to do that, and then that leads
So
to
I
some
think-
consternation.
I like it. I like the replay. I don't like to have to get angry when you see that it was a bad call and it's upheld. You know, not in before the replay. I like the replay. I like the more accurate play, and I think it forces the ball players to have to think about exactness of playing, and I think they can rise to that occasion, which I think they are, just like the second baseman type of thing, is that they can play with a sense of accuracy now because they know they have to. I think it improves the game.
Yeah, I would agree overall. I would rather keep it. I'd rather keep refining it and keep improving what replay allows for and how it's done and the technology behind it. And if they have to increase the number of, say, cameras set up for more camera angles, or whatever is necessary, I would rather keep it and keep working on it than to just say, nope, we're gonna yank it entirely, or no, we're just gonna leave it as is. I just don't think once you do something like this, you see it through to the end and you see it improve, you see it continue to get better and better. And that's I would agree. I like it. I'd rather they keep it. So
What do you guys think of that suggestion in the New York Times about having a lot more camera angles, kind of like football does? I think that would be a massive improvement in interest of the game. And what do you guys think?
again, I'm all
More
in favor of
cameras.
that. Yeah, more cameras. I'm good with that. More camera angles, more interaction, more like you're sitting in the control booth of the broadcast itself and you're seeing all the different options and angles and everything. I'm all for that, because that's how baseball is most successful, is when you get the intimate view into what's going on here with the runner at second, what's going on with the coach standing in third, in the third base coach's box, relaying signs and that sort of thing, and getting those kinds of perspectives instead of the traditional down the tunnel right toward home plate with hitter, catcher, umpire, and then pitcher in a little bit more in the foreground. I'd be all for it.
I
still don't-
think it works. It works if the director who's choosing which shot you're looking at is a good storyteller. I just worry that when it's Fox and it's the World Series, all you're going to see is 12 more nervous fans in the stands between every pitch.
Yeah. You're right about the storytelling. That's absolutely true. But I like the idea of just presenting all the different angles to the viewer at home, so he can choose what he wants to watch. That's a little bit more pie in the sky.
Okay.
But yeah, I get what you're saying, Art. That's I don't need any more shots of nervous fans or anything, and I sure as heck don't want any more shots of celebrities during the playoffs or World Series. It's like, I don't care who's there.
And by nervous fans, of
They
course,
have a
I
new
refer to
series
Yankees
out.
and Red Sox fans and no other team.
Yes, of course.
Kind of related to broadcast quality, for me, the single best change would be the ability to mute the announcers and have the crowd noise, so you don't have to listen to the incessant talking about their mother's spaghetti sauce and all the other stuff that goes on. I'd like it to be like I'm sitting in the ballpark, I'm watching it on TV, and I'm just hearing the crowd. And they've got all the graphics and the stats now displayed. I don't lose track of the count or the inning or whatever. And maybe just the infrequent play-by-play guy like the announcer in the ballpark. That would increase my enjoyment dramatically, just to shut them up.
Yeah.
Amen.
And I would agree with that to a degree as well. I mean, there's some announcers who I like, not so much on national broadcasts, but there's some guys I like when I listen to different games on the radio or MLB radio. some announcers I like, play-by-play guys and color guys better that I like better than others. But yeah, I think about when ESPN covers the national championship game or one of the major bowls, oftentimes what they'll do is on the flagship network, they'll put the actual broadcast of the game, right? The one that you don't want to watch because it's got the idiot announcers and all that crap, and it's full of commercials and it's full of just fluff. The game is ancillary. And on the other channels, they will show you different angles, different perspectives of the game, and one of those perspectives is without any kind of announcer, and you just get the crowd noise and you get some of the ambiance. And sometimes even during halftime, they show a little bit of the marching bands for the different schools. That's kind of cool. I think if Major League Baseball did something like that, where your alternatives were available to you, where you could just get the in-game audio, not broadcast or controlled by anyone, but just the ambiance.
You can do that with MLB.
Yeah.
You can do that on MLB during regular season.
And I do that with Cincinnati Reds games. I listen to the radio broadcast instead of the TV. Yeah.
Online, you can watch either team's video, and then you can pick, do I want to hear the audio from the TV or from the radio from either team?
Right. No. That's true. Yes. You can do that. What I'm saying is just
and do that for postseason would be great.
Do it for postseason or even eliminate any kind of broadcast at all, and you just get a video feed, and then you get to just hear what's going on in the ballpark. Now, of course, this year with no real fans in the stands, kind of a moot point. But
actually, you would still hear the crowd noise because it's piped in.
It's not. Yeah, but from MLB The Show, so.
Also, apparently nobody is disturbed like I am about the failure to have the center field camera go directly over the pitcher and have a perfect alignment of the strike zone, like the College World Series does and like the Little League World Series does. And it just makes it more enjoyable to me. I'm old school. I was a catcher. I like it being squared up. And I have not heard the reason why that's not done, why it's always over the right shoulder.
I have heard once that it was because the camera would have to be in the batter's eye. And at the major league level, the batters won't let it happen.
I believe that. I believe that. Most broadcasts, the camera from the center field perspective is just to the left field side a little bit. It gives you that odd angle that Roger's talking about. But yeah, what Arthur said, I believe that is putting it directly in the batter's eye and not, or setting it below the batter's eye, shall we say, somewhat camouflaged or hidden, but straightaway center field shot would be the ideal. Yeah, I agree with that.
Whoever has said that about it being in the batter's eye.
Anecdotal. I only heard it. I don't know.
Okay. I'm not saying you. I'm saying whoever is saying that. I don't believe they've ever played baseball. And A and B, in terms, yes, a lot of movement back there, but an inanimate camera. And then off to the side, the pitcher's arm is coming from the side right now. So a right-handed pitcher, if that were an issue, particularly to a left-handed batter, but probably also to a right-handed batter, that would be the issue we'd hear about. The camera's bothering me. It's right over the right shoulder of the right-handed pitcher. We don't hear that. I just think that's a bogus, I've heard a couple of people say that might be it, like you've heard it somewhere. I think it's totally bogus. I think it has no merit whatsoever.
I think whether it has merit or not, you're underestimating the professional athlete's ability to come up with an excuse. The Reds were playing in Detroit, and apparently there was some metal plaques on the back of the seats that the stadium people had to go around and put tape over them.
Is that why they did that?
Because they were reflecting the sunlight, and the batters were distracted.
That's why they did that. I saw that. I was watching the Tigers Red series in Detroit too, and I thought that was kind of odd.
Apparently, the batters had complained about the reflections off of some of them distracting them.
Right, because there's nobody sitting in the stands.
That's kind of like a flashbulb going off at night. I can kind of understand that.
And if I batted like most of the Detroit Tigers, I would come up with a reason for it. So.
hey there.
Yeah, nice. He's trying to bait us. He's trying to bait us, Chuck. Don't take it. Just ignore him.
Oh, don't worry. Half the Reds lineup had the same excuse, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yep. Can bring up Eugenio Suarez, etc. Let's not go there. Let's not go there. Anybody else want to bring up any other rule changes they would propose or like to see implemented if
bigger fields?
Oh, ooh. Bigger dimensions.
As I said before, I think I said, I don't know if it was at our fourth quarter or not, from 1998 until 2018 at the time, that the shrinkage of the field was 18% on average across the board in all of the parks by having foul territory removed and outfield fence coming in, whatever it is of that sort. And increase in foul balls made it such that you essentially add in 1 year, 1 week's worth of games by the delay of the increase in foul balls from 1999, 98 till 2018. And so I think if we were to have more balls in play action, that would shorten up the games. And also the, add excitement to the fact. And if they send the fences back out, so not only shrink foul territory right and left, but back up the fences, add 10 more feet or 7 more feet or whatever it would take.
You know, there's the golf course analogy. I'm not a golfer, but when I watch golf, they talk about they're constantly making holes longer at the majors and other courses to accommodate the growing technological and physical ability of the players.
Mm-hmm. It's not only that, it's all the golf courses. Jack Nicklaus just came out. He said we have to change the equipment, and particularly the golf ball, because these guys are hitting drives 400 yards. Okay? And he said you don't have enough room and enough acreage to build golf courses that are going to be competitive. And yeah. I was going to ask Chuck a question. Do you think, obviously, this part of the problem of shrinking fields has to do with the move to make cozier, more historic-looking ballparks that emulated, let's say, Fenway, and some of these others, Wrigley, with shorter, distances to foul territory. Do you think that was the main problem, or do you think this was by design?
I think they built it by design to bring more fans into the park, and some of those seats that were, I call it the fourth low tier on ticket price, when they brought those extreme right field, extreme left field level seats, yeah, they jumped up in price across all the ballparks.
Okay.
So it was just, it's dollars income, and if you look back at some of the pictures of balls, line drives, and foul balls hit in some of the same parks that were built prior to 1998 and in 2018, you'll see that they've almost added like 4 rows of seats in right field or left field foul. And, now with the fans being hurt, I don't know if they all had them, but a number of parks put a screen up there that players even flew into the screen when they're going after a foul ball to protect the fans from the line drives or whatnot. And at one time, there were no fans in that neck of the woods. So yeah, I think if they just increase the size, it'll drop the home runs down by extending the outfield, and it'll speed up the game by fewer foul balls. I don't have my numbers right here. I should have looked back in my notes, but it is an approximated the increase in foul balls and the delay of game through an entire year actually added a week of games.
I think I remember reading that
In
article.
time.
Yeah.
Huh?
Wow.
I actually remember reading an article that said basically the same thing. That it was one of those unappreciated effects of making the game longer, is that those foul ball outs just weren't outs anymore. The batter got another chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I was watching an Oakland A's game the other day, and it was a revelation because Oakland still has that giant foul territory.
Yep, it's one of the very few multi-purpose donuts left. And of course, it's now just theirs. No more Raiders. But yeah, it's that ballpark plays very differently than the ballparks that Chuck was referencing that were built in the retro style from the mid to late 90s onward.
Has anyone looked at the new Texas park to see if they've bandboxed it? I know the upper decks have been bandboxed. They cantilever room almost onto the field.
Oh, do they? Okay. No, I haven't seen a game or anything from the new ballpark.
Yeah, either have I. That's interesting. And I like that term, bandboxed.
Mm-hmm.
That's Fenway, you know.
Yep.
I like that. Yeah.
Yep, that should appeal to you as an early 20th century guy.
Oh yeah.
That's what they call them. Bandboxes.
Well, the old Tiger Stadium outfield, right?
Yep. Especially in right. Especially in right.
Yep.
I like the idea in the New York Times article also about having the kind of, I can't remember how they described it, but like a double fence where you cannot have fan interference.
Yes.
I like that too.
I think that would be wonderful. That just drives me crazy when you have fan interference.
Yep.
Yeah, they added that in Philadelphia when I was up there. They added that row of flower pots basically between the fence and the fans. It's,
okay. Yeah.
About yay wide, but it's enough between that and the railing to keep the arms in the fan side of the fence.
Yeah. I agree completely with Blaine. I hate that too. I hate fan interference. I hate it when fans want to stick their arms or half their body or more over the wall to try and get a foul ball.
Unless it's Jeffrey Mayer.
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything about that. You know, I want to point out it was a Yankees fan who said that he hates that and said that he would like to see that changed. I think that's very conciliatory. I think that's very.
Did you guys see that Seattle, as a joke, had put one of their cardboard cutouts was Bartman?
Oh God.
Well, that's the exception to.
That was almost my background, but he was too angled to the side in the photo.
The Bartman case is the exception to the fact that was one of the greatest events in Major League history. When he interfered with that catch salute and allowed the Marlins to win the pennant and go on to beat who? Do we remember?
Marlins shortstop really allowed him to.
The Yankees.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Cubs. Yeah, it was Alex Gonzalez, the Cubs shortstop.
Cubs shortstop. I mean, Cubs shortstop.
That's true. Yeah.
Who had the disaster there after that? But yeah.
Glenn was not being conciliatory. He just forgot.
Fair statement.
Sorry, Glenn.
Does anybody else have anything, any other rule changes or just changes in general they would, if they were made commissioner, that they would like to see implemented in Major League Baseball?
I got in kind of late on the game here. I'm sorry to come in late to the meeting, but I have one, and it may have already been said, but I would do away with the designated hitter.
No, everyone has stayed away from the obvious. No, that's good. There's always worth discussing in the context of.
Yeah, I just think it's.
I would be happy to get rid of the designated hitter as soon as Jesse Winker and Nick Castellanos are not Reds anymore.
What'd you say, Chuck?
As soon as Miguel Cabrera
send
retires.
the old folks home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I think Rick and me have talked about this one before, but moving the pitcher's mound back a foot or two, just try to make it so everybody's not hurling 95 when the ball's at the plate.
I have heard the argument made that the speed would be down a bit, but that it gives it that much extra room for breaking balls to break.
Well, but I think these guys would learn. I mean, some guys wouldn't learn, some guys would. I mean, that's part of the profession, and they.
Yeah.
You have to have a guy figure out how to throw a pitch that breaks at the right time.
Yeah.
That would be very interesting because
Although I
now
don't know
they're
there's a
playing
wrong
at 60
time for
feet,
Dustin
6
May
inches,
and whatever.
Right.
you know?
Yeah,
Did you
and I
guys
think,
By the
see
way,
the
hi,
Dustin
Rick,
May
Tommy.
pitch the other day?
what's that?
Did you see the Dustin May pitch the other day?
I watched it replayed. Yeah, that ridiculous.
I don't know how anybody hits that, no matter how far the mound is.
Yeah.
No, that was amazing. I mean, the way that two-seamer broke in on Machado, and he's just like, all right. Yeah, that was awesome. We'll see how May does in the long term here over a full season next year, hopefully, and we'll see if they end up catching up with this stuff. But he was just, man, he's fantastic. He is like the Dodgers need that, but there you go.
Right.
Hey, the Marlins are in first place.
Yes, you were. We figured you were going to crow about that at some point. So here's your 10 seconds. Go ahead.
That's it. I'm done.
And that's how I know it's not a real season.
Yeah, hit us.
Yeah. If the Marlins win the division, you'll know it's not a real season. There's.
I got Chuck's email this morning. I said, "Oh yeah, they're in first place." It's like,
Is there any truth to the rumor that Jeter is going to be infecting the whole team with coronavirus? Like it's 2-1.
I think it's the Jupiter effect with both the Cardinals and the Marlins. So.
There you go. Yeah, I think you're right. I did not think about that, but yep, they share that Roger Dean Stadium, that facility.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Stay away from Jupiter,
the
Florida.
Marlins don't come back till like September or something. That right?
Right.
We're on
My
the road.
understanding was that the Marlins had to sign 5 new players just to get enough of a team to play.
It was more like 7.
7.
I think they ended up signing upwards of 7 players. They got some guys who were injured, and they brought some guys up, obviously from Jupiter, and they signed 5 to 7 guys who were not even part of the organization. And it's just to stitch things together. They're half their bullpen, basically.
The Baltimore announcers yesterday were saying that Mattingly had written one guy's name into the lineup, into the official lineup, before he'd actually met him.
Probably right.
Yes.
2020.
Strange times indeed. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, this has been great, but I think I want to wrap it up here because we got 2 more things I'd like to do. First of all, I want to give Kent a few minutes to make a proposal about something that we can do going forward in our socials, very similar to what we've just done here. And then I want to give Chuck the balance of the time for his presentation. So Kent, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, the backstory to this is just that I always take a quick look at the email that comes in at the end of the week, this week in SABR, and down toward the bottom, see if we have any new members in our territory. But below that, there's a section called, I think it's called Around the Web, and it's just links to some articles that have been published that week in all kinds of media, newspapers and websites and whatever. And there's usually about 15 different stories. And I personally don't go through them all, but I usually look at 2 or 3 or 4 and think, wow, this is really some interesting stuff that people are writing about. And wouldn't it be nice if we kind of kicked that around at the meeting? So the idea I presented to Matt would be that we would take turns finding an article of interest, hopefully to most or all of us, and about a week before the meeting, send out an email with a link to the story that we could all read, and then the volunteer just lead a little discussion about it, maybe go 10, 15 minutes at the most, and just kind of expand our horizons about what's going on. Could be a history story, could be, I mean, this is a Red Sox centric story, but I saw a really interesting article about Daniel Bard coming back after 7 years of the yips. I mean, I found that fascinating. There was a story that I read about, I think it was Trevor Bauer talking about in sort of guarded terms about what pitchers do to improve their grip on the baseball. Fascinating stuff. There was a good article about the new Texas Stadium with some photographs. So just, wide open as far as topic.
Mhm. But I think you wanted to, as we talked about, you want to keep it away from being anything that's too centric, if you will, to a particular team,
Yeah,
and
maybe
keep it a
not.
little more broad-based.
Right. Something that would be of general interest to the chapter members.
The only complaint that I have is that half the articles require subscription.
There you go.
Yeah, that was the other criteria.
And so some of the good articles, the good topics, I'm not paying for them.
No,
Right.
I agree with that. I think it should not be anything involving a paywall. It just have to be something that you can click on and read.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or if the person is presenting it, maybe they can cut and paste it out so they can send it to everybody.
That is an option.
You can get around paywalls.
Yeah. If the person's if the individual doing the presentation agreed, if they'd like to do that, that'd be great. So then we could read articles that are on the Athletic. I think a few of us might have subscriptions to the Athletic. I don't.
I have one.
So
anyway, that's my idea.
Yeah. So what do y'all think? I mean, it's kind of it's a little bit more of a refined version of what we just had with the New York Times article that Glenn sent us. But I like it. I like it as a way of kind of doing like a different little book club discussion every month. But we don't all have to commit to reading a book. We're just reading an article, and then we have it. Everyone good with
Maybe
that?
I can remember what I actually wrote about it, so I could talk.
Yes, yeah. Your own responsibility for recalling what you sent out and what the article's about, and facilitating the discussion is a prerequisite. That's a given. Yes. Got a thumbs up from Chuck. Sounds like I'm getting the verbal thumbs up from others. Cool.
Thumbs up for me.
All right.
And sending it out about a week before the meeting is a good idea because that way we'll actually remember what we read.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So that'll put me a little bit on the spot too, because then what I can do is I can start the ball rolling by sending out the Zoom invite or the information about the forthcoming meeting. Hopefully they won't always be Zoom meetings. Someday we'll get together in person again, right? But whatever the announcement is for the forthcoming social can kick things off, and then the person who wants to jump in and do what Kent has proposed, put out the article and facilitate the discussion during the social, can follow up with that. Does that work for everybody?
You want me to volunteer to do the first one next month?
I sure would. Yes.
All right, I'll do it.
Cool. Good deal.
Good.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And by the way, just to put in a plug for it now, I think our next social is going to be on Wednesday, September 2nd.
Okay.
And our little day planners now and have that
For
ready to
Labor
go.
Day.
Or Labor Day. Labor Day is like what, the 7th or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's late.
Late as can be.
Yep. So, all right. Very good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Kent. All right. With that, I will turn the balance of the evening over to Chuck and let him kind of lead us through his presentation on in the park home runs, grand slams. Chuck, the floor is yours.
Can I just hit the share screen and set to go?
Yeah, let me get you set up as the host here. Hang on. All
I
right.
have to tell you, Chuck, I think this is one of the most interesting things that you've ever done. You've done a lot of terrific things. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, this should be a cool one. This one,
Yeah.
I don't want to steal Chuck's thunder, but he gave this one several years ago at a SABR National, and it was well received. So.
Oh, I didn't see it. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Chuck, it's all you.
Wait a minute here. What's going on here?
We got Pedro Rodriguez.
Huh?
We can see your desktop there. So we got two images of Pedro Rodriguez.
Okay. All righty. That sounds good. I'm going to do some background first before I click into it to understand where it all came from and how hard it would be for any of you folks or even me now to begin again to come up with all the numbers. If you were bent on doing it, you can't do it anymore. long ago in the early 80s, after I lost all of my memorabilia and household goods, was destroyed on the side of the road in California, I began to collect stats and not things. And that's where my bent has been for 40 years ever since. I was in the DC area and I read an article that was written by Bob McConnell, one of the original founders of SABR. And he had taken over from Tattersall the home run log. And I communicated with him for a number of years. And I was able to get from him. Now, you have to understand, this is in the days before email, before internet. And so we operated off of bulletin board, phone calls, and snail mail. I was able to get 5 floppy disks, if you remember what they are, the little five inchers. I got 5 of those from him that contained just the Grand Slam home runs from his database. From that, because I was a Pentagon worker, I was able to go to the Library of Congress, the special rooms where you could actually read the hard copy stuff and not the microfilm. So I was able to go to all the Sunday papers, the Washington Post, New York Times, Cleveland Plain Dealer, Chicago Tribune, Kansas City Star, you name it. And look at the detailed articles written in the Sunday sports section by the sports writers, because that's where they wrote all the details, not during the week where they had a space limit for box scores and whatnot. So from that, I was digging into it and fed Bob McConnell a number of things I found. But what I kept was in the park Grand Slam home runs. To me, they didn't seem to happen quite often. And I said, okay, that's a super rare event. And about 5 or 6 years after that, I joined SABR and I ran across David Vincent, who took over the home run log from McConnell when McConnell died. And I communicated with him. And at that point, we now had the internet and sharing and a variety of things. So with that as a lead in, I want you to know that in my life, of all the games I've gone to, I witnessed in the stands 2 in the park home run grand slams. My first was in 1970 in Milwaukee. Detroit was in town. And I was in the first. And Roberto Pena, with 2 outs, Detroit ahead 2-1. He hit this in the park grand slam home run. My second was in DC in 2015. And with that, I will lead into it. And I'm going to show you get the slideshow going here. I'm going to show you the 2015 that I was at. It's going to happen quick, so you're going to have to pay attention to it. This is Aaron Althair from the Phils, who hit what would have been maybe a single, but the center fielder kind of screwed up. So if you look at the center fielder, I hope it's playing.
There you go. Wow.
Okay, that was 2015. I was at the game and saw that was my second one. Now, Center fielder was Michael Taylor. 2 years after that, now there's a bit of an ad here first, if it'll kick in. I couldn't cut out the ad. I tried. Okay, that's the last two and the only two in the 21st century.
Really?
The last two.
Michael Taylor bookends both.
2015 and 2017. The only two this past 20 years. Okay. In all, from 1876 to 2019, there have been 209 in the park Grand Slams, and they were done or accomplished by 190 different players. Now, when I say that's the number that I've been able to identify, and I still work on it because you have to get a hold of the papers that talks about in detail of these games. I can identify Grand Slam home runs, but not the specifics of in the park. And that's
Especially when you
only
go back,
from
yeah.
the sports beat.
Yeah.
Okay, of this 100 or 209, 46 were in the 19th century, and they were done by 43 different players. 163 in our era, if you want to say, by 147 players. And by the way, that Grand Slams forever was about 3,000 Grand Slams have been hit since 1876 to 2019. And you can add one more because some have happened this current week. In 1901 to 2019, there have been 1,800 players who have hit a Grand Slam in the park, or I should say, a Grand Slam.
And
There's a break.
Chuck, obviously a number of players hit more than one Grand Slam then, right?
Oh yes, we've had a number of in the park. You mean of Grand Slams and all?
In the park.
Of course.
In the park.
And who leads the first? Who's hit the most?
A-Rod.
A-Rod. Who's hit second?
Lou Gehrig.
Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig.
That's right. Who's third?
Is Manny up there?
Manny Rodriguez, or Ramirez, excuse me. Who's tied for fourth?
Isn't Gil Hodges in there somewhere?
Oh, he's a bit down.
Is it McCovey? Was he the
Eddie
old?
and McCovey.
Eddie
Both
Matthews.
at 19.
Matthews, okay.
Okay, here's a breakdown of the decade. Now you'll see, it's hard to see on the right-hand side. I don't know if your screen is clicked off because we got all these ugly mugs in the extreme right side, but there's only two in the last 10 years, 0 from 2000. And you can see here that the action or what have you of the field. Now, what's interesting is I thought at first there was, the complete game was changed, except that I compared ballparks from the Green Cathedral's book of showing dimensions for the 1911 to 1920 compared to the next decade. They were the same ballpark. So something changed in the play of the game they got rid of in the park.
Lively ball.
Dead ball never ended
Lively ball.
exactly at that
Well, and
time.
the fences were brought
Got you
in.
covered, sports fan. Got you covered.
Yep. Yes.
By league from 1901 on, no interleague and no postseason, which is not surprising at all, given in interleague is a new thing and we haven't had IP home runs, grand slams. Here's the teams that have hit the most.
Wow.
And I highlight here the Yankees and the Baltimore Orioles / Yankees when they were identified in the record books as Baltimore Orioles, but they're actually Yankees. So they're tied for 4th with the Giants.
Pittsburgh's up there because of the massive field early 20th century.
Oh, Ford, yeah.
Ford Field
Field
was
was
big.
huge. Yeah.
Yes.
Deep, deep center field. That's also, I think, maybe
Never,
what benefited
never a
the
no-hitter
Tigers.
thrown on Forbes Field.
Yeah, that's, yep. You're talking about deep center
I was
field.
going to
Those
say
top three.
that
Four.
The Dodgers
also
probably
some
just
help
playing
right
in
there.
playing the Giants.
Mhm.
is that 4 of these 20, actually 3 in this time period, were Honus Wagner's. He hit 3. And so, well, one guy helped jump up the numbers. Here's the teams that got stung.
So Chuck, is Honus Wagner the leader in inside the park home run grand slams?
Yes.
He's
Well,
got the most of 3.
Now, see, when we have to go back to, are we talking 1901 through 2019, or are we going back to 1876?
I'd go back to 1876, but that's
Okay,
just,
he's tied. Honus Wagner's tied
okay.
for first with 4.
Chuck, any explanation for why Pittsburgh is so low on this list?
The only thing that I can think of is the playing deep. So,
They knew how to play their field.
Yeah.
I would say so. The home park, knowing how they,
Bounced. Karen.
I guess back in those days, home field advantage actually meant something as far as playing the field.
Chuck, I have a question. Honus Wagner, did he have one of his inside the park home run grand slams in the 19th century?
Yes. Yes.
1898 or
1.
99? Okay.
He had 1.
Okay. Wow.
And here's a breakdown by innings of when it happened. And the home team did 89. And surprising, and you'll see down here where I have unknown, the score at the time of the at-bat. That's because you need play-by-play and you need information. Now, in the past 5 years, this number was 56. It is now reduced to 50. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see my arrow or not. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. We can see the cursor. Yep.
That's because of Sporting News and Sporting Life articles when SABR provided paper of record access, and you could get the long narrative articles on the games. And things like in the park or kept it in the park grand slam, something to that effect, that now I'm able to identify a grand slam over the fence as compared to in the park. And you'll see that one would think that here, the same unknown capability here of how many outs there were at the time, because it's in dispute when you've got a box score line and a team scored 7 runs, and they really don't say how many outs And that is something else that has to be looked at through the old newspaper accounts and everything else. Here's when the, I would say that is, given the number of games played, that is probably an equal number across the board. Days of the week, it's pretty near an equal number across. However, the number of increases on Sunday, if you look at that, was when an awful lot of double headers took place in the second game of the DH. As over here that you're seeing, a lot of these second game of the DH happened on Sunday. So that's why there's a kind of a peak here by comparison.
Chuck, I have a thought on. I've been thinking about the number of inside the park grand slams, and the numbers were very high the first 2 decades of the 20th century. Another factor besides the dead ball that may be considered is the fact that many ballparks did not have fences. And the outfield was lined by fans. And if a ball was hit, it was up to the umpire to basically say whether there was a ground rule double or not. And a lot of times guys hit home runs that might have not been actual, because the fans would, particularly the home fans, would kick the ball around, would interfere with the players and so forth. So I don't know if you'd considered that, but the thought occurred to me that if you look at the early ballparks, many of them did not have outfield fences at all. I'm thinking of, the Polo Grounds that originally did not have any fences. Basically, the outfield was ringed by, and they'd put ropes up sometimes. Anyway, it's just a thought.
Well, there were a number of grand slams that McConnell had in his database that were referred to as bounced, meaning the ball bounced out, not a ground rule double, but bounced out.
Yeah.
So, Fred, it may well be, it was up to the umpire if it was a home run that quote bounced out or was kept in the park. Who knows?
Yeah.
The only way to know is to go back in the time machine in the DeLorean.
Yeah, really. You couldn't figure it, but it just occurred to me. I don't know. It's just a kind of a quirk.
Well, they didn't have ground rule doubles at first, I thought, right? So if it bounced over, that was a home run for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they first started, yeah.
Right.
The book I read on, I think we talked about it maybe at one of our other sessions on Babe Ruth. He commented that the kids would come after, especially when he hit a ball, and I would assume probably most home run hitters, is that the kids would go after those balls in those parks without the fences. And that, I wondered how they dealt with that. Was that a home run if a kid or anybody grabbed the ball and ran away with it?
Yeah, it happened.
Yeah.
It definitely happened. I wonder how they scored it, though. I think Fred, your comment, Fred, I think has some merit probably. If I don't know how they ruled on something like that.
I'd have to look at it again. It's been a while since I looked at it. By the way, if you want to look at a visual perspective of what the parks look like, then if you'll go to the Library of Congress website, and they've got a whole series of photographic albums, and some of them reflect play in historic ballparks. I know Pittsburgh, New York with the Polo Grounds, and you'll see the fans lined up in the outfield. Chicago is another one that had a couple of different. Of course, they had 2 different teams, but it's an interesting thing to look at the photographic evidence or photographic record of what they played with. One that sticks out in my mind is one of the Polo Grounds where it's really interesting to see very early automobiles in the outfield, along with horse-drawn carriages. And I just thought, boy, this was right at the beginning of motorized transportation. So it gives you a couple different perspectives, not only from the baseball standpoint, but from history of transportation too.
Yeah, that is a fascinating.
Here's where which defensive pause hit those, and I should explain. Tommy Leach in this time period has 4. 3 times he was playing center field, and 1 time he was playing third base. Honus Wagner was playing second base 1 time and shortstop twice of those 3. And Joe Jackson, 1 in left, 1 in center, and 1 in right.
Wow.
The 3 pitchers, Deacon Philippe, Mel Stottlemyre, and Pete Milne are the 3. I can give you the 9 catchers, but there's only 1 Hall of Famer on there. But Tim McCarver, old Buckethead, was one of those guys.
Who was the last pitcher you mentioned?
Pete Milne, Milne.
I'd never heard of him. No. Okay. Interesting.
Here's the Hall of Famers that of those that hit in the park Grand Slam home run. Some that you had expected in there with Grand Slams really never had a Grand Slam in the park Grand Slam home run.
No pitchers there. I noticed there's 3 pitchers that hit.
Yes, but they are not. Those 3 are the only 3 that actually hit in the park Grand Slam. Those 3, and none of those 3 are in the Hall.
Okay. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, and some of the other guys must have just hit them over the fence all the time. I mean, Ruth and
yes,
Mantle, and I mean, Eddie Matthews. They must have just never bothered to hit it inside. They just hit it over.
Or slow foot.
Slow foot. Yeah, they never had the foot speed to be able to pull it off. I mean, you're looking at some guys with some foot speed on this list.
Well, how about Hack Wilson? He was a big power hitter, and
Mantle had it.
One.
Mantle early. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't have to worry about in the park.
No.
I was thinking that Miller Huggins was kind of a cheat because he was in the Hall as a manager, but he had way better playing career than I had realized.
Yeah.
Really?
I never looked him up. That's interesting.
35 WAR, just as a shorthand.
Oh.
6,800 plate appearances. 2 years he got MVP votes.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Poor Archie Stimmel gave up 3 in the park Grand Slam home runs 2 days apart.
Oh, jeez.
I'd
say it was time for the showers for that guy.
Yeah, I'd have some words about my defense too there too.
What years did he and Pat Reagan play? Do you know?
Let me see.
I just looked Stimmel up. He was a Red.
1901, 1902 time frame.
Okay. Yeah. These guys are probably about the same time. Oldham and Sally.
A lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Jack Taylor. Yeah.
And here's the ballparks. I don't know if you can see the numbers on the right-hand side, but here's the Nats Park. There are 2 of them in our brand new Nats Park.
Yeah.
And there's Polo Grounds 5 and Ebbets Field. Okay. For the actual ballpark. And you were talking about the Pirates.
They weren't all on Ford's Field.
No.
Polo Grounds was a big park too.
Yeah. Now, before I showed you the innings in the Park Grand Slams hit by innings, and there was a bottom of the ninth highlighted in red.
Yes.
And that was Roberto's Grand Slam in the park walk-off. And it's the only one out there since 1901. There was one in, I think, in 1787 or something of that sort.
I don't know when the rule was changed, but it used to be that if you hit a walk-off,
First run
it
across.
was only counted as a single.
Yep.
And I don't know when year that changed, but that might be part of it too.
Well, no, he had to be down by 3 at the time. That fourth run had to end it.
Otherwise, a lot of people, when they hit a walk-off, they just stop at first base.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And here's the only in the park, the second one. Cincy, the Reds at the Phillies, the game in 1958. It happened, the sixth inning, and then the game was suspended and replayed, or play went on again in game 2. And it was actually, the game where it was hit was the second game of the DH, but they couldn't complete the DH because the rains came. So they picked it up in the seventh and carried it on 2 months afterwards.
Okay.
In the same game, Brooklyn at Cincinnati, 2 in the park Grand Slams in the same game.
Wow.
Second inning and the 5th inning. And here's pitcher Archie Stimmel got them both. He coughed up both in the same game. And the very next day, he coughed up one more for his 3rd in 2 days. Archie Stimmel.
Wow.
And it's the only time out there that we have back-to-back games by the same team. Pittsburgh had a back-to-back. I should correct that because of the Brooklyn game, back-to-back games for that, but it was same team, etc. For that. Now, the thing here, I want to talk about the last item is that everybody thinks Babe Ruth slow-footed was on first base 3 times when in the park Grand Slams were hit and he scored. So Babe Ruth was on first base when Wally Pipp on the first one hit the in the park Grand Slams, Lazzari on the second, and the third was when Lou Gehrig was at bat. And we have in the archives, I don't have it, I tried to find the thing, but I couldn't find it, is the only from that era of in the park Grand Slam home run being hit where it showed, and it was a film, I guess that somebody filmed that or what have you. But that's the one where Gehrig was 1.5 feet behind Ruth between third and home.
Well, that was 1934, and Ruth was really getting up there.
Yeah.
Slightly overweight.
Yeah, rotund, I think is the term I would use.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, looked like John Goodman.
Husky. He was husky.
Husky, big boned, yes.
Big boned.
Okay, my last thing that I'd like to point out is that when I said we can't do this research anymore, and here's why. SABR literally gave the home run log the baseball ref for a pittance of an annual license fee. Prior to that, any SABR member could query the entire 300,000 home runs hit and search by a variety of criteria. And the home run log was kept up to date by tons of SABR members who looked in the records and the papers and so forth and added to it. Now, baseball ref, the only way you get to see it, you have to have the name of the player, go to his advanced batting stats, click on home run log, and you only see the home runs of that player that you've selected. You cannot query the home run log in toto.
Mm.
There is no way. We gave that up. I know why it was done. That was an income problem, and David Vincent's health was not that great, and he subsequently died, by the way. But we could not get at the SABR convention, could not get more than 2 volunteers to work on a project. When I did the triple play project, I had 48 SABR volunteers work on the triple play project. When you have to do the same intense research, then you literally have to, as I said, I would say go to the New York Times or the Yankee Clipper newspapers on Sunday and read every single column and page and take notes and do it Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. And it takes about 2 to 3 hours for each Sunday's paper. And that's one new newspaper. And you then have to go to the Washington Post, the Cleveland Plain Dealer, Detroit News, Chicago Tribune, and do the same thing for the same day to try to catch some information. Without the SABR researchers, I guess David Vincent said it is pointless to keep it up because we have no volunteers that's going to dig into it. And hopefully BB Ref would do it. Well, the only thing BB Ref has done is just add home runs currently adding. I don't think they've added one update for one thing.
Chuck, what do you mean by you can't access it? Do you mean the SABR leased it out as an income source and you can never access it in total, or you have to pay a subscription?
No, you cannot access it in total, and SABR no longer has it on a server or in any means where a SABR member can query.
But can you query a privately held log of it? I mean, does somebody have it and you just can't?
Yes, baseballreference.com has it. They have the entire bit-by-bit database. And if you were to pay the fee, the monthly fee to BB Ref, they control, you can't even query for such things like in the park grand slam home runs. You can query, year by year if you wanted to. And I'm going to use an example. 2019 all grand slams hit. You can put that in your search criteria. But the question is, if you were to do the kind of research I did with this, and which I've done for the past 25 years on this, is that you can't do it anymore. Because you can't go down a list and scan a list and saying, okay, I've identified this player. At one time, I had a long list of grand slam home runs hit, but not identified where it was hit or blah, 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 to try to see if I could find in the park grand slams. Well, I used that list as best I could for the retrosheet.org play-by-play years. But in box score years, you can't do it because they don't put that info in the box score.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have to go to those papers. And now every single paper is going to charge you. I can't go to Chicago Tribune anymore without paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go to the New York Times archives without paying for it. Those days are gone of going online to a search or whatnot. If I was in DC and still had my capability to go to the Library of Congress reading room of the hard copy, I suppose I could, work on 1 year or something of that sort, but I certainly could not replicate what I have already done in the past 25 years or so.
Shame. It's a shame.
And that's the same thing, by the way, for trying to find out about cycles being hit. There's some dispute on cycles, but of the fact that there had to have been more cycles hit than is in the record, but you can't search it up anymore, because one of the key parts of that is the home run piece of the cycle. And without the home run log, you can't even get a head start on your research. Out of when I joined SABR in '93, I had 10 projects going. I've only got, after triple plays and in the Park Grand Slams, I only got 1 left. And I'll be working on that, and hopefully in November, December, I can present that. And it is what is known as a perfect inning. Perfect inning.
Yeah.
Do anybody know what that is?
It's the 9-pitch inning, 3 strikeouts.
9 pitch,
pitches?
3
9
strikeouts. That's right.
Is that also?
I've identified 100. It was 99, but 3 or 4 months ago, I found the 100th one. It's the difficulty, but as soon as I put that together, I can present that. It's my perfect inning. And with the names of all the players who got struck out, names of the pitcher, the catcher, the teams, the inning, the scores. The only sneak preview I'll tell you, not one of those 100 happened in a no-hitter. Not one.
And
So
Chuck, I believe it was just done in the last few days to start a game, inning 1. I could be wrong on this. On ESPN, I saw them talking about it.
Well, the one that I heard about was that it was 10 pitches, because there was a 2 foul balls, and the one was on the 3rd pitch. It was a foul ball on the 3rd pitch, so it was 10 pitches. So I don't know. We'll see.
That's not a perfect inning, though. Right?
Yep.
No.
9.
Okay, I'm going to stop my share so Matt's got the control and he can send us all the bill.
And just a quick question, Chuck. There was nothing on Project Retro Sheet?
I and Dave Smith have been working for 25 years to get this information. And you need the play-by-play, not the box scores. We have box scores back in 1901, but there is no play-by-play, okay, where you can find out where that detail of where the balls were hit, what zone, et cetera, was in the park or whatnot. And to get more play-by-play is going to require SABR members to go into the archives of all the papers, lots of that stuff. Like we found in the Hartford paper, one of the triple plays, because there was the beat writer from Hartford couldn't get the train back from an away game, And apparently that he had time to write down all the information and interview the players who were involved in the triple play. And that info was only appeared in the I think it was called the Hartford Current, I believe.
Current, yeah, Hartford
yeah.
Current. Yeah.
And so that's what it takes is that, SABR members to grab a paper, and go back in time and have a goal to find them. As I said, the Triple Play project had 47 SABR members contributed to it. The only ones who really contributed to this was really Tad Saul, who created the home run log, Bob McConnell, David Vincent, whose handle was Grand Slams. That was his email address as well. Dave Smith was involved in Retro Sheet, and myself. No others volunteered. Too much legwork.
Chuck, do you have to, as you said before, do you have to pay now to go into those newspaper historical records? Do they charge you for any?
Oh, yes. You have to be a subscriber.
Yeah, or you can
have
use
to have a subscription.
Yeah, or you can use newspapers.com. If they have an agreement with newspapers.com, you can get information that way. That also costs money.
Wow.
And then you only are allowed so many downloads a month. I know that the Chicago Tribune limits you at $12 a month. It's a maximum of 250 downloads a month. Well, the download, I don't know if they mean that I have to scroll through a page and each page is a download. When you go to the next page to download, I don't know what they're doing, or it's the whole Sunday papers that download. I don't know what it is. But you have to have a target in mind. And from a target, you need some kind of a list to fill in the holes.
Chuck, the home run database, could it be bought back and given to SABR again?
It's licensed. That's all. It's owned by SABR, but it's licensed. So the only way, quote, to get searchable in the hands of SABR, I guess, is twofold. Convince the board of, SABR that they should unlicense it, and two, get equal income from some other source. Plus the fact, who's going to keep it up and who's going to do the research on it? Right. Who's going to add? Because the home run log is added to every day.
So my question, you said it's been licensed to Baseball Reference?
Yes.
You know about the change that happened within the last week or two about how they're redoing things?
Oh, you mean the stat head?
Yes.
I've been in stat head for over a month now when they switch me over.
I know that one of the things Sean Foreman said was that the reason they did it was because they needed the cash to do projects like what you're talking about. So I don't know if you need to bend their ear about where on their project list this falls. But I know that he had been frustrated with the fact that all of the stuff on the play index, the searchable database, was 50% of their work and 2% of their income.
Yes.
Which is why they're trying to increase the income so that they can actually put resources toward improving the searchability and interactivity of it.
Well,
but again, I don't know the details.
Well, what you're talking about is two sides of a research point. One, you need the access to the current database, which has to be completely searchable. And on the left-hand side is to go get more info,
right,
primarily in the first 50 years of baseball. Well, I don't think too many SABR members are wealthy enough to subscribe and hire a staff to go in to tear apart the Yankee Clipper to find out every single game in the 19th century and look at all the writers' notes and all of that crap that's there. So, you know, I just said, well, that era is over with for SABR research. It is gone. You can't do it. Same thing as right now. I only have 4 or 5 folks that each year feed me updates for the triple play. And I give out stuff for triple play. If you want to see the same pitch, plus my list of in the park Grand Slam home runs, if you go to retrosheet.org under features, under research papers, you'll see my PowerPoint plus the list. You'll also see, which I do each year, my triple play analysis with my list of triple plays. And that's all I have. Say good night, Gracie.
Thank Gracie.
Very good. Thank you, Chuck. As always, I really appreciate it. Very cool. And you, yes, you are on the hook for November, December, whenever it is, for the perfect inning show presentation. So just
That's
let us know.
the immaculate inning, right?
Immaculate inning.
Well,
yeah.
some call it that, but it's not. You know, that name was stolen, and so from day one, I called it the perfect inning. And somebody else who went out there to Wiki list named it that, and that's where it's spread out there. But when I began this,
wasn't there a presentation in SABR about a year ago on that? I thought
on
one of
the Immaculate,
yeah,
they may well have been. There again, it's the same thing. We don't have the info.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, gentlemen, we have overstayed our welcome by a good 12 minutes plus, but I'd say it was worth it. And we don't have the, we still don't have the check, but of course that's the fourth quarter for you. So I guess with that, I will say thanks for attending and bid you all a fond evening, and stay safe, stay healthy, and see you all next month.
Hey,
Thank you. Outstanding tonight.
Thank you, Chuck. Very
Yes,
good.
Chuck.
Appreciate it, Chuck.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Chuck.
Chuck.
Thanks, everybody.
Meeting,
Appreciate
Matt.
it.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.